Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 1 of season 2 of Supergirl called The Adventures of Supergirl. So this is our first episode of the show now on the CW. Going to be part of all the superhero goodness going on that channel, and I'm very much looking forward to all of that, despite obviously being set on alternate Earth. But there is a lot of stuff going on here that really does sort of show that they really are going to very much be embracing just the comic bookness of it all, which is sort of what really has made the CW shows really excel. So let's kind of get right into it. Let's start off with kind of one of the negatives of this episode, and that's this whole thing with the very abrupt way in which the relationship between Kara and Jimmy kind of came to an end. The sort of that was kind of one of the big things. It was very back and forth last season, and I wasn't the hugest fan of this simply because it just didn't always work. There were times when it did and times when it didn't. Here, the way that Kara's like, I've just got to figure out my own stuff right now. It seems very forced. This is something that they really should have let have some time to breathe. Now, I read the press releases and stuff. I don't read spoilers, but we know Jimmy has some stuff coming up down the line, and this sort of feels like they're shuffling this relationship off stage to sort of get to that, which I'm not really a fan of. You do have to let things happen at their own proper pace. But what's done is done. And I can't help but wonder if they're just sort of doing this also so that they can kind of play around with Mon-El. And okay, it's basically it's been said that's who it is there in the capsule. If that's not going to be sort of set up as a potential new romantic interest for Kara. So Jimmy's human guy. Here's somebody who with a much more similar background to where she's from. And in fact, I think it's probably a little bit telling that Kara even mentioned that, on Krypton at her age, she would have been considered a spinster. So we'll have to see what's going on there. Now, this, of course, the big thing this episode is, of course, we bring in Superman. No more text messages, or he's just like sort of only vaguely seen. Here he is, a fully realized character. Obviously, they're really playing the hilt, the sort of Christopher Reeve interpretation of the character, particularly from the original movie. If you really have seen that movie a lot of times, which I have, and sort of look at this episode, you can see all these little nods to the original Richard Donner Superman movie from 1978, which still, is probably one of the best live-action interpretations of Superman ever. Right? He's really, really the Silver Age Superman. And, it's just really hard to top that in terms of really the earnestness of Superman. But here we see him interacting with Kara, of course, saving the crashing space shuttle, a staple of Superman stories for quite a while. Ever since, in fact, 1986 with John Byrne's Man of Steel miniseries, which sort of after Crisis on Infinite Earths brought Superman into the then quote-unquote modern times. But anyway, his banter with Supergirl it's really good. They're very happy with they feel like a family. They're usually happy with to spend time with each other. They kind of rag on each other a little bit. They're supportive of each other. And it's also very interesting to see the way everybody sort of reacts to both Superman and Clark Kent. Alex, definitely not exactly subtle about the fact that she thinks Superman's pretty hot. Wynn fanboys hilariously. Cat Grant's reaction is just absolutely hilarious and not entirely out of character for her behavior in the comics. What's really interesting is the relationship between Superman and John, and how he's upset that John refused to destroy Kryptonite, and actually making Martian Manhunter the guy to name Kryptonite is a very interesting twist. And those two, Superman and Martian Manhunter, have always had what I thought is a very interesting sort of relationship. They're both aliens on Earth. They're kind of, in a lot of ways, the last of their kind, although not exactly. They're two characters who understand that in a lot of ways they are very similar, but they're also people who are, in a lot of ways, very different. Superman is raised on Earth. He's been there since he was a baby or very, very young. Martian Manhunter came to Earth when he was a full-grown adult. He had a father, he had two children, he had a successful career. So their Earth is both of their adopted homes, but the way they view it and their cultures from their original planets are very, very different. To Superman, Krypton is basically a very abstract place that he really has no memories of. While Martian Manhunter, of course, remembers Mars vividly. And they do sort of both make good points. It's like Superman is like, hey, we need to destroy this stuff. It could kill me. And Martian Manhunter's like, well, we know you're not the only Kryptonian out there, and this is basically the only thing that we can really use that could possibly hurt them if less than friendly Kryptonians show up, which of course they do. So it's kind of very interesting to see how this dynamic plays out between them. And hopefully they can kind of get to the point where they put their past beside them and kind of move on in a more positive direction. Let's see, what else do we have? I am liking the new headquarters of the DEO. It sort of puts them a lot more front and center with what's going on in National City, I think. And I think the sort of Kara's reaction to it all was sort of like, wow, this place is much nicer than no one. Sort of they're nodding. It's like, yeah, this place is a lot more supportive of us than CBS was. They were willing to let us take a lot more risks and really be a lot more of a comic book show. Let's see, what else do we have to talk about? Nothing really particularly huge to say about the overall plot of this episode. It was really just there to very much introduce Lena Luthor and have us get a read on her, and to set things up so that John Corbin can become Metallo. Interestingly, this is like the second time, at least, where John Corbin, for whatever reason, has been British. They did that with like a 90s Superman cartoon version of him. And again, nothing really particular to say about him. He's just very much a run-of-the-mill sort of assassin type character. But hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more of him as an individual character as things go by. Now, interesting what they're doing with Lena Luthor. She's not a character that I'm super familiar with from comics, but her being Lex's adoptive sister, I'm seriously hoping at some point they'll get to name-dropping the idea that their father was named Lionel Luthor. Just because John Glover was really, really great as Lionel Luthor on Small. And he was the voice of the Riddler on the 90s Batman the Animated Series, if you didn't know that. Amazon Agent Carter, now that I think about it. But anyway, I really like how she does sort of set up this whole thing. It's like, look, I'm not my brother. I'm trying to sort of take this company in a new direction to get away from the misdeeds of him. And I do like that they've kind of established what's going on with Lex Luthor in this universe. Hopefully so that we don't have to sort of fall back on Maxwell Lord as Lex Luthor Light. And they can maybe do something different with him this season. And I really did like that moment when after everything's happened, she basically says, like, look, I'm just somebody who's sort of trying to make a name for myself outside of my family. And of course, Kara's whole thing is that she wants to make her own name outside of Superman. She just doesn't want to be female Superman. She wants Supergirl to stand for her own things. And I do like little things between those two, like Kara and Clark when they were in the office and just sort of started using X-ray vision to look around. They didn't even have to talk to each other. But getting back to Lena, I do think it is kind of interesting to see how things are going to kind of play out between them. I mean, they've already established that she and Kara are two people that have a surprising amount of common ground. Now, how much of this is going to stick, and whether or not Lena truly can escape what it means to be a Luthor, well, we'll have to see. But it's certainly something interesting. Another thing that was interesting is what they were doing with Cat Grant this episode, besides the whole thing with her wanting to jump Clark right there in the office. first of all, and another really blatant nod to the old Superman movies, is her new assistant being Miss Tessmacher. I mean, just the way that Kat was yelling her name, very reminiscent of what Gene Hackman was doing back in that movie. Although I don't think that it's really going to be too much of a thing. Although I would like to know, why does Kat call this lady Miss Tessmacher while she constantly calls Kira? Let's see, what else? But I really did like Kat's speech this episode about how, when you're standing on the shore and there's all these different directions and possibilities before you, how easy it is to be afraid to sort of just take the plunge and take the next step. Because that really actually resonates with me right here in my own life right now. The place that I've been working previously closed down. I just finished moving to a completely different state. I don't have a job yet. I'm just sort of, so much stuff for me is right up in the air right now, and I'm just trying to figure out what is the next step, what is the best path. And Kat was absolutely right. When you are in that situation, it is extremely intimidating. You just kind of wish there was somebody you could go to and say, just tell me what to do. You can even kind of get the sense that Kara kind of wants Kat to just basically tell her what to do with her life. Of course, that's not Kat's responsibility. Kara's life is her own. Her choices about her life are her own. And Kat is really absolutely right in what she does with figure it out yourself, because you can't let other people make these decisions for you. It's certainly tempting to want to push away that responsibility, but that's not something we can do. Our lives are our own. Our choices are really, at the end of the day, the only things that we can never truly own, that can never be taken away from us. So, let's see. I think that kind of covers everything that I had to say about this episode. I mean, it's definitely a very solid start. It really. Oh yeah, there was one other thing. I like when the building is collapsing. Supergirl and Superman go up there and they hold that up, and somehow them holding the panes of glass in the window is enough to get the building to stay there. I don't know what that glass is made of, but yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. But it's a comic book show. We're gonna let that slide. But anyway, I am very excited about this new season. I mean, the last season took a little while to find its feet, but once it did, it was really very, very solid, with hitting the points more often than not. And of course, now that it's on the CW, they're going to be playing around with the multiverse a lot more. It's going to be really, really cool. Definitely looking forward to this season a lot. Before we go, though, there is one last thing I would like to say. I've said it before on this channel, and I'll say it again. Reviews for my shows will go up when they go up. The answer to when a review will go up is always when I get around to it. Now, I try to always have my reviews up the next day, but sometimes that's just not possible. Like I said, I just moved, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of things that I have to deal with. I'm looking for a job. I spent the better part of 3 hours at the DMV yesterday getting stuff with my driver's license sorted out. So, yeah. So, please don't do things like write in the comments sections of my videos, when is this review going to come up? I really, 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 really hate that. I mean, it's not that the comment sections of my videos are terribly busy, because they're not. It's just, that's not what those are for, and people misusing those just really gets under my skin. Okay, so, I mean, the messages section of my channel, that's what that's there for. I've got Twitter. I've even got my Tumblr. Okay? Just don't use the comment section of my videos for stuff like that. And please don't send me reminders about reviews. Okay? I've got it all up here. I'm not going to forget, but, real life has to come first. and video comments like that will be deleted. So, with that said, thanks for watching. As always, please comment, rate, subscribe. That Twitter, if you should need to ask me something, is at Hoosier Jedi, just like the channel name. And you can also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. So, until next time, take care and have a good one.